Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Metis Warrior here with Timothy and Alexandria.
Hello everybody.
Originally this show was set to go one way, and then the more we dug into the details of what we were going to report on, the more corruption and dirtiness we found in this very dirty swamp. But first I want to say something. All I see is people in the East are complaining. They're complaining they don't have their rights and recognition. And people, non-Indigenous people, are taking Indigenous funding. That's what this show is about right here. And we're going to lay it all out for you. But I want to speak to the people in the East right now. I just want to tell you that I don't see a whole lot of courage coming from the organizations that currently exist in the East. What I see is a whole lot of ass kissing to the politicians and begging the politicians. Well, you can say what you want about David Bertrand, and yeah, there's been misappropriation with Bertrand of funds and the other stuff going on within the MMF. Say what you want about Bertrand, but Bertrand's a fighter, and Bertrand fought for rights, recognition, and the benefits for the Metis. So that's how it was gained. Organizations in the East, I'm extremely disappointed right now, because kissing ass is not going to get you your rights and recognition, and we're very discouraged and disappointed at them for not standing up and having the courage to actually fight for their rights and recognition for the Metis people. How can you claim to represent people when you lack the courage to fight? That is concerning to me. What the hell is that getting the members? Is the members benefiting out there? Because right now I'm highly pissed off, and I'm pissed off because non-Indigenous people have been taking Indigenous fundings, and the reason why they're able to do that is because they're fighting for it. But the people that are representing the people in the East, well, hell, if all they want to do is kiss ass, they're not going to get rights and recognition. They're going to continue to be trampled on.
And you know what, folks? As a proud Métis, and I am proud, and I am a fighter, and you know what? I'm disgusted that we are allowing white settlers to take away our rights, recognition, and our funding. I'll never be a sheep that is going to be led down the path to slaughter, for the lack of better words. I'm a fighter, I'm a proud Métis, and I'm sick and tired of white settlers and Daniel Poirier from IRC, and now a board member in Alberta. You know what? Both of these individuals, to our knowledge, have yet to prove any kind of genealogy, but yet they are two peas in the pod of corruption that are robbing true Indigenous people of funding and rights and recognition by their corruption. And it just absolutely, it just disgusts me that people are sitting back and allowing, you are enabling this to happen because you don't want to take a stand. Well, you know what? I'll never back down from a fight, because I'm a proud Métis. We cannot allow these white settlers to take away what is ours, and to sit back and watch it all transpire like you're watching a show. You are enabling and allowing them to rob the Métis people.
And the people whose money that they're going after is sitting back and kissing politicians' asses, and they're not achieving nothing for their members. I actually feel great sorrow for the people in the East, because we have reached out and tried to have them actually stand up and fight, and they're so afraid to fight the government and for the rights and recognition. All they want to do is file paperwork and kiss ass. Well, okay, if that's what you're doing, then how in the hell is that going to benefit your members? That's what I want to know. Well, the way things are going there, it might be 10 years if people don't start standing up. If you're not content with your organization and you don't think that they're achieving rights and recognition for you, these people are just clubs at this point, because they're not fighting. Bertrand was a fighter. Bertrand was a warrior. Bertrand went out there and went head to head with the government and achieve things, regardless if he got corrupt or not. He's still, you can never take away his accomplishments and what he did, what he has accomplished and done. You cannot take that away, and I do not see 1 ounce of that. I don't even see 1/10 of his courage in anyone, any leader in the East right now.
And you know what, folks, before we get into today's show, I just want to clear the air about a love triangle that I don't even know about.
Exciting and come aboard. We're expecting you.
And
oh yeah. I mean, I'm in
the
the
Love Boat.
I'm in the news. Yeah, we're in the love triangle.
We're on an episode of the Love Boat, courtesy of Gregory Burke, trying to spew his fake propaganda. But certainly, Gregory Burke, I think I would look at the love triangle between you, Sue Burke, and escorts and porn stars. So maybe look deeper into that love triangle, because geez, I'm in a love triangle and I don't even know about it.
Yeah,
folks.
He was concerned. He said, do you even know about it? Well, first off, there is no love triangle. Let's get that right. I love my wife, period. All right, so if there's any misconception about that, let's understand. I'm clearing that up right now. So that, let's put that to rest. Greg, you trying to spread out there is a bunch of BS, and that's all you're spreading. And it's a shame that somebody like that could never come up with his genealogy.
You know, I've never seen somebody fight so hard to be something that they can never be. And Gregory Burke is fighting so hard to be Metis, and he has yet to publicly provide his genealogy to anyone. And I mean, that just answers the question right there.
And Daniel Poirier, oh, where the hell is his genealogy? Let me ask you this, and that's what this show is going to dive into. How in the hell did he become a board member of an affiliate of CAPS? And it's very easy, because hell, apparently you don't need genealogy there either. Look at the chief, and we're going to go more into detail on that, and that's really what this story is about. This show is not about Burke or anything like that on this episode, but we were just setting an example there, laying it out there for you to hear, because we're very discouraged and very disappointed in the organizations in the East, because they're going about things the wrong way. And I can guarantee the people in the East that are listening to this. Now, I'm very aggravated because, again, this show was supposed to go a different way. We had a whole thing planned, but we found corruption that goes all the way to Carolyn Bennett. And Carolyn Bennett, she's an enabler of non-Indigenous taking Indigenous fundings, and that's what this show is about. Carolyn Bennett, you are corrupt.
And so, folks, today that leads us right into today's show, and I pose this question to everybody listening, and really think about your answer before you say the first thing that comes out of your mouth. Is the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, CAP, a bogus Indigenous organization, folks? Is that? And for some of you out there that may not know who or what CAP is, and formerly it was known as the Native Council of Canada. They began in 1971 as an umbrella organization that would really include both Métis and status Indian people, and it really never got off the ground because the National Indian Brotherhood was already formed, and they represented the status and treaty Indians, with only the Métis organization working within the Native Council of Canada, folks.
And there's a lot of shady things going on there.
And if you, we're going to show you a screenshot of this as well. If you go to the homepage of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, and it does say on their homepage, you can read it, it's one of the 5 national indigenous, and here's the key word, national indigenous organizations that is recognized by the Government of Canada. Again, it was founded in 1971, originally established to represent the interests of Métis and non-status Indians. So that goes into that as well. But that's sort of a crux of who they are. But we're going to go into more, and you're going to see a screenshot of this as well here. And the date that this transpired is, this happened, this was a posting of October 9th, 2016, where CAP has a new national chief, Robert Bertrand, and then Kim Bodin is the vice chief. And that's a screenshot there. And for any of you that may not know as well, CAP is actually located in Ottawa. So they're located in Ottawa. You'll see a screenshot with their contact information and stuff like that as well. And then we're going to go into a little bit here. You're going to see a screenshot here, and it's CAP, the national chief, Robert Bertrand, was a federal Liberal MP and had never claimed to be Aboriginal. So this person was questioning where he knew him to be a federal Liberal MP, and at that time he never once claimed to be Aboriginal at all. So again, what the heck is up with that, folks?
Yeah, so here you have somebody who is able to achieve funding for CAPS. He used to be a politician and worked in the government. Okay, so let's understand that. And how was he able to get this funding? Through Carolyn Bennett's help, of course. Let's not make no mistake about that. I mean, that's obvious, you know. She was very supportive of her fellow political ally there. And so that is wrong when you have Carolyn Bennett's office assisting non-Indigenous person to achieve Indigenous funding, and you got real Indigenous people out there who's getting zero funding.
You're going to see this in a screenshot as well, and this individual is giving a third example of CAP's intersection with the RCMP and or the military. And again, at that time, the national chief, Robert Bertrand, again, he was a Liberal MP and a Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defense, and he also sat on the standing committees of National Defense and Veterans, folks.
So yeah, and I find it interesting to note that during that whole time that he was in office, he never even claimed to be Aboriginal or even linked himself to anything that publicly that we can find out there.
And you know what, folks, just keep harping, and I hate to use the word chief, because this individual was not a chief, and you're going to see.
Hold on. Have you noticed that it's white people that label themselves chiefs?
White settlers.
Yeah, they use the title chief. I'd be hesitant to be in any organization that has the title of chief. We were open to that, and then we see the lack of courage of some of these people who we believe may be Indigenous. But I mean, it's very disappointing again. But I just want to point out a fact that Chartrand, yeah, he's Indigenous. Does he call himself chief? No. Go ahead.
And you know what? You're going to see Robert Bertrand's bio on the screen, and you read through it yourself. He was born 1953 in Quebec, and it says here clearly he is a Canadian politician. It goes into he was a federal member of Parliament for whatever riding with significant majorities under the banner, and let's wait for it, folks, the Liberal Party of Canada, Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party of Canada. It goes more into national defense. He tried to work on the poor quality of life for the members of the Canadian Forces, and again, so nowhere in this bio is it listed that he's an Aboriginal or Indigenous person. Nowhere. So again, he's a Canadian politician, and he's now, and I'm not even going to use the word, I guess I have to,
quotation mark, chief.
So how in the hell did this Canadian politician, nowhere has it stated that he's Aboriginal or Indigenous?
Take a look at his picture, folks. This is the picture. This is the picture. Does this guy look like he's got an ounce of fight in him? No, he had connections. He had political connections that were fighters. So yeah, non-fighters can have political connections that are fighters and obtain money. Yes, that can happen. But look, he was a politician. That's how he had that hookup. If you haven't been in a political office and you think that you're going to play kiss ass with the politicians and achieve money, you're wrong.
So folks, would you be okay? I wouldn't be okay. How could anybody be okay with a white settler taking the position as a national chief of the Congress of Aboriginal People, CAPS? I sure the hell couldn't be okay with that. And how is that allowed to be okay? He held that position for 4 bloody years. But we'll go into that in a minute. And I want to show you, we have the CAP financial statements for the period ending March 31st, 2017. And again, almost a mirror similar to the MNC and other shows. And you're going to zero in on one of the screenshots where it's going to show you there's 2 years, 2016 and 2017, for travel, accommodation, and meetings. In 2016, it was 388,508. All of a sudden, in 2017, it jumped way up to 931,711 in a 1 year period. Good God.
So to all the indigenous communities out there right now listening to this show, this should piss you the hell off. It should piss you the hell off that you have this guy who refused to prove his genealogy, to submit his genealogy, yet over $900,000 in travel. I mean, that money is meant for indigenous people. And what we heard is that Daniel Poirier, who, by the way, Daniel, please show your genealogy. Please post your genealogy. So Daniel Poirier, we've heard through the grapevine, was given money through this organization at some point, and we're still looking into that. That would be very curious on how much the money was, and did he actually take it? Because it seems like people, again, that goes back to our theory, people are creating boards, joining boards, only to financially benefit themselves.
Well, you can look at several of the screenshot in regards to the CAPS financial statement for the year ending March 31st, 2017, and they do show that their revenue at the end of 2017 was over $5 million. And I'm not going to go line by line showing everything with their expenditures and what have you. And you'll also see on one of the pages here, and it ends up, you'll see that I believe it's page, I'm going to look at it more closely here, it's page 6, and it's going to tell you here clearly that the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples is incorporated, and wait for it, as a non-profit organization without share capital, and interacts with various governments on issues relating to Aboriginals people, specifically those relating to Metis, non-status, and off-reserve Indians. So here you have a white settler, because let's put it this way, during the time of these financial statements, this white settler was the, in quotations, chief, so he was handling all the money. And it's also interesting to know that they are exempt from taxation under paragraph 149(1) and 1 of the Federal Income Tax Act, folks.
So to all our homeless indigenous out there, all our homeless Metis, take a look at the financials there. If that doesn't piss you off that this was obtained by somebody who could not prove their genealogy, refused to prove their genealogy as an indigenous person, this money was, why in the hell do we have homeless indigenous? And there's so many people that are getting all these millions of dollars, and it's so easy right now. It's like the gold rush in Canada right now. It's the Canadian gold rush. All you do is start an indigenous organization. Doesn't matter if you're white or indigenous, because if you're white, you start an indigenous organization and you receive all these millions of dollars. And so Carolyn Bennett, How in the hell is that happening? How in the hell is these people who have non-indigenous board members, how are they achieving money?
And you know what? You'll see in a screenshot too, Jaded, January 2018, where the regional president calls out the Congress of Aboriginal People after the chief fails to prove heritage. So this fake chief, and he is a fake chief, Robert Bertrand, was took office 2016. Now 2 years later, that he still fails to prove his heritage. A question I have to ask you, what the hell has he been sitting there for 2 years? But you can read the article where he's being called out, and if you can even stomach it yourself, how is he allowed to stay there for 2 frickin' years? I just don't
why was he
understand that.
voted off? Why wasn't he kicked out the minute that he was unable to prove that he was indigenous? And yet he's the chief? I mean, good God, man, this is a cluster. And let me just tell you, today's show was supposed to be different. We invited people from the East to join on some calls that we were making to some political allies to try to push to get funding in the East. And you know what? They stood down. These people stood down. They didn't join in. And I'm very discouraged about that. It's pissed, because you cannot help people that don't want to help themselves.
And you'll see a screenshot as well, and this was an article where the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples is an organization that remains divided over its leader, who, and here's the key word, he refused to provide documentation outlining his indigenous roots. And I mean, he was since his election as national chief in 2016, he has refused to answer that question, and he has refused to provide that. And you're going to see some screenshots throughout the show too, where people took to social media, and I'm going to read one of them, and this individual mirrors our outrage and how you should all be outraged. Can anyone please explain how a white guy with no proof of indigenous ancestry can take over a national indigenous organization, call them chief, and everybody seems to be okay with that? What the hell is going on with that, folks?
I'm going to answer that. I want y'all to, here comes the secret, okay? We know KFC's got their secret ingredients. We know Coca-Cola's got the secret ingredients. I'm going to show you the secret ingredient. Pay attention to your screen. Bam! That's the secret ingredient. Greed. Because the people that were sitting in this organization realized that if they was to label this guy their chief and bring him on with his political connections, they could feed their bank accounts and their wallets.
And you know what? Keep in mind, we did tell you that this individual, Robert Bertrand, is a fake chief. And if this doesn't knock you off your seats, I don't know what the hell would. And you'll see it in a screenshot as well. And this was actually a news release from the government of Canada. And it says, Canada and the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples sign a political accord. So at this particular time, December 12th, 2018, that's when the release came out from Ottawa, Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada, and they say on December 5th, 2018, and here we have Carolyn Bennett and the national fake chief Robert Bertrand signing a political accord. It doesn't, and I'm not going to read this whole bullshit propaganda. I'll let you peruse all the garbage yourself.
But let me tell people out there, and Carolyn Bennett, I cannot believe you have the audacity to run around and tell people who you will not talk with and who you will talk with. And here you are signing an agreement with somebody who is not proven their genealogy, who's titled themselves a chief because they're a political ally. That is dirty. This needs to be investigated, deeply investigated here. I put this conspiracy on the level of U.S. conspiracies of the Hunter Biden stuff that's going on. And so I would put Carolyn Bennett in that same category, because you are guilty of helping misappropriate indigenous funding. Why in the hell do we have homeless in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, all over Canada? We have homeless Metis and homeless Indigenous. Why is that? Can you please tell me, when you're sitting here and helping someone who labeled himself a chief, okay, who's not proven their genealogy, get all these millions of dollars? That's crap, man.
And you know what? I'm going to just read this statement and you'll see it yourself. This is page 2 of the political accord. And Canadian government, shame on you. You disgust me. Carolyn Bennett, you make me sick to my stomach. And and
let me say this, Carolyn Bennett, Métis Warrior will not be kissing your ass. I don't give a damn. You want people to tiptoe around you and pucker up so they can get funding. There ain't going to be none of that from us. We're not puckering up and kissing nobody's ass, and we're disappointed and we're sick of your behavior.
So I'm going to read the quote this is on page 2 of the political accord, and I quote, "The signing of the Canada Congress of Aboriginal Peoples political accord is a breakthrough for our people. For the first time, we have an agreement with the government that recognizes the Supreme Court of Canada, Daniel's decision, our 17-year-old battle for recognition. We celebrate this achievement and look forward to working with government to plan and deliver to our people." And guess who this sickening, disgusting statement is? This is by the fake National Chief of the Congress of Aboriginal People, Robert Bertrand.
Well, he never shown his genealogy, so therefore we call him fake, because he's never shown his genealogy. We don't think he's got it. If he would show his genealogy, then we wouldn't say he's fake. But obviously, you didn't live as an Aboriginal. You put nothing in there, nothing about your Indigenous anything prior to calling yourself a chief. And then, you know what you are? You're a poof. You're a chief. Poof. You're a chief. Just like that. It's the poof chiefs. And so I don't understand this. And so you haven't shown your genealogy. We're highly pissed off about it. Nobody's going to walk around on eggshells around Carolyn Bennett. I mean, this is a bunch of crap right here. Carolyn Bennett, I'm going to talk to you for a minute. There's people that are not receiving funding, and you need to get these people funding, because you're crooked, you're corrupt. When you decided to give your liberal political partners money that should have went to the Indigenous, because I mean, this is supposed to be an Indigenous organization, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so guess what? Yeah, we're not puckering up for you.
But the key thread in this corruption and this literal deceit is, as we know, this fake cap chief Robert Bertrand was an MP with the Federal Liberal Party, and that's who Carolyn Bennett belongs to. So that is the thread that binds this deceit and corruption. We have a white settler that is pretending to be a chief. You know what? He said that our people, you know what? They're not your people. You are a white settler. Métis people, Indigenous, Aboriginal people are not your people. You flat out refuse to provide Aboriginal ancestry. This is a complete fraud. You are perpetrating fraud against Métis people, Indigenous, Aboriginal people, and you disgust me.
Yeah, you disgust me too. Again, this show is supposed to go a different route. We're going to have a different conversation with Carolyn Bennett about these issues until we found out how dirty she actually was. And don't get me wrong, I know not all liberals are dirty. I know that. But however, here you have the dirty liberal Carolyn Bennett making sure people can, and this is just another, if you think about it, this is a colonial attack on the Indigenous communities. If you're Indigenous, screw the title conservative and liberal. Screw those titles. If you're Indigenous, you're Indigenous. It doesn't matter, conservative, liberal, whatever. These people, these colonial people came in and took the Indigenous funding. And no matter if you're conservative or liberal, that should piss you the hell off.
And if that didn't disgust you enough, you'll see a screenshot dated May 21st, and it was from Barry 360, and this is where the Canadian federal government pledges $75 million for Indigenous people in urban centers and off reserve. This comes after the Congress of Aboriginal People, CAP, said there was a shocking lack of funding. They did a court claim against this.
Yeah, and there needs to be an audit. There needs to be an audit. There needs to be some audits, and this is what we're calling for. Carolyn Bennett, try to clean yourself up a little bit. Maybe go take you a good shower. Get some of that
there's not enough. There's not enough
you.
baby wipes in the world.
Yeah, there's not enough antibacterial in the world to get rid of the crap that you've been doing to the Indigenous people. But let me tell you this, clean yourself up. Make the attempt to clean yourself up. And what I suggest you do is there has to be an audit on CAPS. There has to be an audit on everybody who's in an alliance with CAPS. And we're very curious on what's going on with Daniel Poirier. Has he received money at any point from these organizations personally? We are recommending and requesting audits to be done ASAP.
And you know what? This is just the tip of the iceberg as we dig deeper into the swamp, the corruption swamp of Congress of Aboriginal People. And you'll see this, there's a screenshot dated September 16th, and somebody is making an inquiry, and it says, does anyone have a membership with the Congress of Aboriginal People, the Ontario chapter? And they say that they received COVID-19 relief funding for off-reserve urban Indigenous, and this individual learned that they would have to pay $50 membership fee to access their services. So for her whole family, it would be $250 for her family. And she's asking, is it worth it? And then you're going to see in the screenshot where CAPS received over $5.4 million urban and off reserve for COVID funding, folks.
Exactly. And so this is for COVID funding. So if you have Indigenous people that money should be going to, how in the hell are you going to tell them to pay $50 to get that money that you were given that money to issue out to the Indigenous people in need? And so we want audits done. Where in the hell has that money went? Where's all the funding went that's went into CAPS? We want to know what money's going to the alliances. We want to know if IRC has gotten anything. We want to know if the Aboriginal Congress of Alberta has received anything. We're requesting audits. This is a legitimate request. And if you don't believe us, we're representing a lot of Indigenous people out there that listen to our show. All of our listeners are requesting this. You best believe it. We want answers.
And you know what, folks? Ask yourself this question and really dig deep before you respond. How many of these Aboriginal Indigenous organizations are being run by white settlers when we have so many competent Indigenous people around? And again, the Congress of Aboriginal People, CAP, at that time was being run by a white settler and using the title as chief. He's nothing more than a fake chief. And
that seems to be the trend. The trend among white people or non-Indigenous people that want to jump into the Indigenous pool to try to receive that money, they title themselves chief. Every legitimate chief out there should be pissed off. Should be pissed off at this. To all the people in the East that's been fighting for rights, recognition, and benefits. I say fighting, and I shouldn't even use that word when it comes to the East, because all I'm seeing is paperwork being filed, not really any true effort to fight for their money, to fight for the rights and recognition. And that's the problem. But for these people that are filing the paperwork and puckering up and kissing all these politicians' ass, it should piss you off that your Indigenous funding, not just in the East, but also because we're based out of the West. We're based out of Manitoba. So you look at Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, BC, you look everywhere all over Canada. That Indigenous funding needs to go to the Indigenous people, the real Indigenous people. We're requesting audits and we will be following up with emails and phone calls, and we want audits on these organizations. Start with CAPS, work your way into the alliances. We want to see where this money is being gone, because if people are just becoming board members just financially benefit themselves, that is wrong.
And you know what, folks? You should be disgusted and outraged. Our Indigenous Aboriginal identity is being taken for us, or we're selling out for the almighty dollar. So we're selling our identity for the almighty dollar. And you know what, folks? Is Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, CAP, a bogus indigenous organization? In my mind, yes, it is.
Yeah, I'd say it's bogus. I mean, you look at one of the alliances has Daniel Poirier in there. Again, this is the statement that we issued to Daniel Poirier. This is the request. Submit your genealogy. Put it out there. Just put it out there so people can see that you're actually indigenous. That's the key, right? If you're going to represent the indigenous people, because otherwise, if you're not indigenous and you claim to represent the indigenous people, hell, Canada can just do that. Why do we need other people putting their hands in the pot when you're not indigenous? If you're not indigenous, you cannot represent the indigenous people, period.
And you know what, folks? This was taken right off the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples website, and these are a listing of the CAP affiliates. And if I mispronounce them, I apologize. It's Nunatavut, Alliance Ultra de Quebec, Indigenous Peoples Alliance of Manitoba, Northwest Indigenous Council, Native Council of Nova Scotia, folks, and Association of Métis and Non-Status Indians, Saskatchewan. Their president is Charlene Lavallee. Ontario Coalition of Indigenous Peoples, New Brunswick Aboriginal Peoples Council, Native Council of PEI, and here is our all-time favorite, number 10, and last on the list, and it should be forgotten, and of course the Aboriginal Congress of Alberta Association. And Daniel Poirier is just become a board member, and we clearly showed you that he wants to work hard for the people in the East. Well, you know what? Bullshit, bro. You disgust me, bro.
And they call it the Indigenous Republic. Colonial. Go ahead.
Exactly. The Congress of Aboriginal People, they did this release on October 5th, 2020, where they say that on October 3rd, Elmer St. Pierre was elected as the National Chief of Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, CAP, and Kim Bowden was re-elected as the position of National Vice Chief. Do they not have terms where people are getting re-elected? Shouldn't there be term limits? We're going to dig deeper into CAPS in another show. And here we go, the fake colonial white man. I congratulate Elmer St. Pierre on his election as National Chief, said the outgoing National Robert Bertrand. And it says, we all want to see recognition for off-reserve Indigenous people to grow. So you know what, folks?
He took the money he wanted to take, I guess. I mean, that's why we want to audit, to find out where the money actually went. And we're not saying every alliance with CAPS is evil and corrupt, but we are saying there is several concerns with several alliances with CAPS, and we requesting audits on all alliances with CAPS, and especially an audit on CAPS. Because if taxpayers, this is to the non-Indigenous taxpayers and to the Indigenous taxpayers out there. If you're paying taxes, you should be outraged if your taxes are going to people so that they can travel, and they're non-Indigenous. They're not going for, this money's being misappropriated. This should piss you off. So I question if every alliance that's attached with CAPS, is all their board members have their genealogy in place? CAPS, do you have your genealogy in place? And that's the huge red flag for us right now is Daniel Poirier. Yeah, that's a concerning, very concerning situation right there.
Well, Daniel Poirier really is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Wolf,
that is
more like a mouse trying to play a wolf.
Well, he thinks he's a wolf, or he's trying to.
I would equate him to a mouse, because you know how rats like to go and steal the cheese. That a wolf will come right up to you and just take it.
Well, mouse traps are, people do get caught in mouse traps or rat traps.
And that's called audits, folks. That's your mouse trap, your audit. But my thing is, I would create Daniel. I would not even insult wolves by calling Daniel Poirier a wolf. He relates to us, and my way of thinking is more like a mouse that's coming to steal the cheese while you're asleep.
Well, you know what? My question for you, Daniel Poirier, or Poirier Bona, what the hell, whatever you're calling yourself today. Bro, you're in Alberta now. Word on the Bannock beat is that you might be heading back home east. So how in the hell are you going to be a board member in Alberta and hop on that Bannock bus and hightail tail back to the east? How is that going to work?
And we heard that you managed to pull yourself some funding there, and we have to verify if that's true, as we said earlier in the show here. And we're still looking into that. But it'd be very curious on what it was used for, and if that was just a loophole and a way to pay you. And that would just be wrong, because we got to look at what monies actually had made it through the Alberta Congress, Aboriginal Congress of Alberta. We got to look at what money has actually made it to anybody out there. Now let's break it down. I'm sure some people has received some money, because if the government gives you $1 million and you give out $20,000, so there's going to be a couple of happy people out there, but where in the hell is the rest of the money going? I'm not saying that. That's just an example of money. I don't know the exact dollar figure. That is why we are requesting the audits.
And the part that is still not sitting well in my mind, and I'm going to dig deeper, and it said, when I go back to that screenshot where the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples remains divided over its leader, and it says, since his election as national chief in 2016, my question to you, Caps, is before you elect a chief, shouldn't he have to, this individual, before they run for chief, and before he can be duly elected, should he not be made to provide Aboriginal genealogy? And again, in this article, he said that he flat out refused to provide any documentation. So, Caps, why in the hell would you allow this white settler to be elected as chief in your organization and let him be a fake chief for 4 bloody years? This shows you, folks, that Caps really truly is a bogus Indigenous organization. Stay far, far away from Caps, please.
Yeah, how many people is associated with Caps that has not proven their genealogy? That is another question. And so we have to stop funding the Caps. We have to stop funding to everybody who's aligned with Caps, all their alliances. This has to stop. It has to stop until the audits are done. And so if we can tell if the money's going where it's supposed to be going, how many people has misappropriated the funding. We have too many homeless Indigenous out there. That is a serious concern. That our Indigenous should not be going hungry. They should not be homeless and living in bad conditions while other people are taking the lion's share of the money. And it's all about greed and misappropriation. And again, if anybody's looking to make millions of dollars, you've heard of the California gold rush. This is the Canadian gold rush.
No, you know what this is? This is the Canadian white settler gold rush.
Yeah, just start you an Indigenous organization and wait for the millions to come in. Doesn't matter if you want to prove your genealogy at this point or not. Carolyn Bennett, you need to get on that and correct that, man. That is some crap. We need accountability, and you're lacking in your job. You're lacking in your duty. Your office sucks right now. We're wanting to hold you accountable, and we want you to do the right things and get out and hold these organizations accountable. Get out there and do your job. Make sure the money's going where it's supposed to be going. Make sure that you have proper relations with real Indigenous people. And Daniel Poirier is not one of them. And Gregory Burke is not one of them. Although Gregory Burke is, unfortunately, he's a fighter, but he has never proven himself to be Indigenous. And but he'll fight for that funding. He would definitely fight for it. But there you go.
And you know what, folks? The only way we can end this white settler gold rush is to unite as a strong Indigenous, Aboriginal, Métis unit of solidarity, and we have to fight back against the colonial system. We have to fight back against the white settlers that are robbing us of our culture, our heritage, and the money that we so deserve from the federal government. This white settler gold rush there is no pot. We've got to get the pot of gold from the end of the white settler rainbow. We've got to snuff it out, and we've got to stand. We've got to fight for our rights. We can't sit back and just wait for the Bannock bus to pass us by and hope somebody else is going to do the dirty work for you.
And to all our fellow Manitoba Métis, the MMF, make no mistake about it, that is our organization. Just because we expose some corruption and misappropriation of funds and some details there that's very concerning to us does not take away from the MMF being our organization. That is our representative. That is our organization. We don't need 10 other organizations popping up to try to take money from the actual legit, real organization. I ain't gonna say legit because we have plenty of misappropriation going on there, and I think that I've heard a lot of good things here recently is in the works going on through the MMF, and that's great. But so I have hopes for the MMF. And Bertrand, he got what he got for the Métis people because he fought for it. And so let's make no mistake about it. You can never take that away from the man. And so I'm just going to say it like that. We have disagreements about things. That does not mean the MMF is not our representative. And if you live in Alberta, the MNA is the Métis Nation of Alberta is your representative. That is who you are. You don't need 50 organizations popping up that try to dip into the funding. No, that money has to go to your representative, to your organizations. All we got to do is clean up the organizations, get rid of the misappropriation, and gradually we'll do that. We're not going to do it by causing further division with all these other different organizations. That's just not going to work.
Well, how many white settler national indigenous organizations do we really need in Canada, folks? Ask yourself that question, and we're going to also dig deeper and find out where this apparently, and we'll verify this, the over $5.4 million that CAP got for COVID. I'm going to dig deeper and see
we ain't done, not by long.
How that got split, and how many people will be interviewing people, how many people got COVID relief money, so exactly how that over $5.4 million was split up. And like I said, folks, really, in my mind, Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, or CAP, is really, again, is a bogus Indigenous organization. It's a white settler organization, white settler national organization that is set up to rob Indigenous Aboriginal people of their rights recognition and the money that they so deserve from the Canadian government, and not by some fake chief out there that is held office for 4 years for photo ops. And keep this in mind: if you belong to a certain Indigenous Aboriginal Métis organization, it is your right to ask questions. It is your right to get truthful, legitimate answers. That is your right. They are supposed to be working for the people, not working for the almighty dollar.
Transparency. And that's why Métis Warrior formed over 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago, because APTN, CBC did not want to cover the stories because they're bought and paid for. And so that's why we had to form, and that is why CBC will rip off our stories when they see us getting traction and not credit us. Yeah, you did that to us on our different channel that we used to have and some of our stories. But I'm going to tell you this. There has to be transparency, as Alexandria says, and we're fighting for that, but we're fighting to clean up the existing organizations. We don't need people like Daniel Poirier out there robbing the Indigenous funding when he himself he's aligned with a crooked organization, number one, out east, and number two, I've never seen his genealogy to say that he is even Indigenous. So if you're not Indigenous, you cannot represent the Indigenous people.
And folks, I'm going to end my little Bannock bus soapbox speech with a challenge, and I'll keep this challenge going. I challenge fake Chief Gregory Burke, and I challenge Bro Daniel Poirier, and I also challenge the past fake Chief Robert Bertrand to put your genealogy right beside mine. Let's all of us let's put it on the table. And let's put it on the table, and we'll see who truly is Aboriginal or Injune. That's my challenge to you, and I'll see if anybody has enough guts or truth or accountability, transparency to match my challenge. And let's put our genealogy and our stuff on the table.
Well, going back to ARC, they don't even use the word genealogy. They use family tree. Why do they use family tree? Because you can handwrite that. Genealogy has to be verified. So again, that was a point that you were making the other day, where they're using family tree. All you got to do is submit your family tree. Well, hell, we can write one of them up real quick. Anybody can. So they're not asking for verified genealogy. They're asking for a family tree. And this shows the corruption, folks. How many non-Indigenous will take Indigenous funding? That is the question. We're requesting audits. I like to see audits happen very quickly with CAPS and their alliances. And let's go into a little bit of Louis Riel.
And you know what, folks? There's sort of a controversy, or there's a little bit of a debate that's going on as we near the time of November 16th. And there's a little bit of controversy where the MMF is saying that they would like a pardon for Louis Riel. But the proper terminology is exonerate Louis Riel, and there is a difference, and you're going to see that in a screenshot, and this was done by the Friends of Louis Riel Society, and you'll see that what is exonerate, and exonerate is removing the stain of being called out for blame, liability, or punishment. So, and what is a pardon? A pardon is an act of grace proceeding from the power. So really, we're being told that the MMF would like Louis Riel to be pardoned, not exonerated. So in my mind, to pardon somebody, they're guilty, but it's an act of grace. You're just going to pardon them. Well, Louis Riel in reality should be exonerated because he was not guilty. He should never been accused of anything criminal. So when you exonerate somebody, it's not saying they're criminal. So you'll see that in a screenshot, folks.
So let's stop letting the colonials in to attack us and take the Indigenous funding. That is wrong. That's all I have.
Take care.